All right, everybody, back with our second Cabral House Call of the weekend, episode 3467. If you want to follow along, check out what all the questions are for today. Let's head on over to stephencabral.com/3467. All right, first question today from the community is from Tommy. Tommy says, hello, Stephen. I'm an IHP. A year ago, I started having diarrhea daily. My sleep also suffered, waking up in the night, unable to fall back asleep, even with magnesium, melatonin, and breath work. I had some leftover Healthy Belly, so I began taking 2 capsules in the morning and 2 at night. Everything cleared up. My bowels were perfect. My mind was clear. My body was calmer. I thought it was the mastic gum that killed some H. pylori. About 7 days after stopping the Healthy Belly, it all came back again. I've since done a parasite protocol, which I had to stop 11 days before the end as I was feeling fatigued. I ran a stool test just before these symptoms, and it showed Citrobacter fruendi. I'm unsure whether to do a parasite protocol again or run another stool test. Appreciate you. Okay, happy to help with this. Appreciate you, Tommy, being a part of the IHP community. And of course, it's really great to hear that. So we've got some really great data. You did the stool test, and then you also have some anecdotal data from actually taking a product that worked for you. So let me help you walk through this. So you started the parasite protocol because you said, I'm suffering from diarrhea daily. I don't know what's going on. You took the Healthy Belly, which if people don't know, we've been using that product for well over a decade. Absolutely amazing for your belly, right? For your digestive health. Yes, we use it a lot, but of course, I just want to give the disclaimer first. Can't provide any medical advice, medical treatment plans, medical cures, medical diagnosis. But we use it a lot because it's been used for thousands of years for H. pylori, and that's with the mastic gum. But it's not the only thing in there, right? There's some berberine, there's other great products that help to kill bacteria. Okay, so then you started doing the parasupport protocol for potentially parasites. Then you ran a stool test and you found something called Citrobacter fruendi. And then you're unsure whether to do the parasite protocol again or run another stool test. Okay, 1, I don't think you need to run another stool test. And 2, you don't need to do the parasite protocol again because it's 8 weeks long. You almost finished it. You're going to be good. And also, you didn't find a parasite that I was told, at least from this question. You found a specific type of gram-negative bacteria. And so when I look at this, particular finding, of course, what I wanted to share is that I am not, of course, giving medical advice, but what I wanted to share with you is that we use the CBO protocol for bacterial overgrowth in the gut every single day in our practice. So in our practice, we meet with, I don't know the exact amount of people per day, but probably somewhere around 100 or so, and so it's not a small amount. And we get to help people all over the world. And so my recommendation, Tommy, is that although great that the Healthy Belly worked, it kind of gave you an inkling as to you need to work on this bacteria, but that's not the only product, right? The CBO protocol has Healthy Belly in the 3rd month. That actually doesn't come first, right? So what we start with is our antimicrobial month 1, antimicrobial month 2, antimicrobial month 3, and then you get to move on. So what I want to share with you is that if this was me or a family member with these specific symptoms, I would jump onto the CBO protocol and then, of course, the CBO finisher. All right, Tommy, it's probably the same Tommy. Tommy's up again. Hello, Stephen. I heard you mention that a certain percentage of folk, possibly with the ApoE genotype, if my memory serves me correctly, experience more inflammation with a higher fat diet. Would it be worth running a genetic test to refine my unique needs a bit more, as I'm more prone to inflammation? Obviously, this comes after the basic Big 5 labs, and would it also explain susceptibility to mycotoxins? Thank you for all you do. Okay, well, great question. Okay, so yeah, there's an even easier test now than a full genetics test, and it's going to give you your MTHFR, your ApoE genotype, and your COMT, which is like, those are, if I had to pick 3, those would be the 3 that I pick. So COMT for detoxification, essentially, MTHR for overall inflammation, and then also for detoxification, but mood for all sorts of things in terms of energy production, mood, and then ApoE genotype for your being more prone to inflammation, Alzheimer's, etc. Okay, so Yeah, you run that test. It's actually, there's one test that runs all these. And just keep in mind, I don't own any of these lab tests. We just get the lab tests for you. So you need a medical doctor to sign up for these tests. We have a medical doctor in every state, and we have them internationally as well. And so this lab test, though, is a very specific one that you're talking about. And it's called the biological age test. I talk about it on podcast 2645. So if anybody wants to learn more about it, I would definitely check it out. It tells you your rate of aging. It's amazing. I run one twice a year, and you can find it at stevencabral.com/2645. Not only will you find the podcast, but you'll find the link to the biological age test, since that one is actually on the High Performance Health website. And if you want a really long URL to find it, you can just go to highperformancehealth.org/biological-age-test. All right. But probably easier would be stevencabral.com/2645. All right, let's dive into the next question, because Tommy, you'll get your answers there. And then there's a whole video that accompanies it with how to read that test. So even if you're not part of High Performance Health, you can still get the test. And the ApoE genotype 3-4 or 4-4 typically does better with a lower fat diet, and specifically a lower saturated fat diet, since saturated fats can increase lipopolysaccharides and inflammation in general in the body. That's well studied. Please don't shoot the messenger. I'm not saying that all saturated fats are bad, and I'm not even saying that you don't need some. What I'm saying is that certain genotypes do worse with it, where if you're an APO genotype 2-2, which is very rare, or 2-3, you would do better with a little bit more fats in your diet. That doesn't mean 70%, that's for sure, but maybe about half that. All right, Kay's up next, and we're talking about percentage of macros. Kay says, hi, Dr. Cabral. What would you recommend to a 59 or 60-year-old who are Pitta Vata body type and tend to be more catabolic when it comes to your Dr. Cabral detox? Would you recommend to modify the 2 fasting days? Both my husband and I are generally okay during day 1 of the fast, but day 2 is always so difficult. My husband got bad headaches, and because he had to work and focus, he ended up prematurely ending the DCD. I got nauseous and chills on day 2, but the most difficult part for me was really wanting to eat solid food. It also seems that my muscle tone is weakened afterwards. I know that muscle goes away much quicker when you're over the age of 50. Thanks for all the great podcasts. They're always informative, and I look forward to your response. Happy to help. So, Kay, what I would say is this. You're not going to lose any muscle after 2 days of fasting. That's just not going to happen. And so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Meaning, could you lose muscle in terms of its water retention? Yes, because muscles are basically 72% water. So yes, I mean, they've even shown now in 70-plus-year-olds that you can gain back muscle that you've had previous. Harder to gain it, but you can definitely gain it back. So, but let's talk about your specific needs. So what I would say is this. The goal is to try to build metabolic flexibility. So being able to go 2 days, without eating, I think is important. I just think that your body should be able to withstand that, but I totally understand where you're coming from. And that doesn't mean we force the nervous system to do that. Okay, so also your husband's headaches and those types of things, you want to just make sure that he's not cutting out coffee on the detox, right? Because unless you're okay with headaches. So if you're going to cut out coffee, cut it out the week before. I always tell people you can do a black coffee just after your breakfast shake. There's no issues with that. If you want to do that, I have no problem with it. And that's because coffee isn't necessarily a bad thing. Overdoing caffeine, certainly not a great thing, could spike blood sugar, all of those cortisol levels. I totally get it. We're talking about 1 small cup. Typically okay for most people, but especially after the first DNS shake, but I'll let you be the judge of that. And so day 2, let's just talk day 2. Maybe on day 2, you do your shake in the morning and you do break the fast at lunch. You start with the day 3 plan. You have your vegan-based lunch, your plant-based lunch, your detox shake mid-afternoon, and then you have your paleo-style dinner at night. No issues at all. And people have never heard about the detox, you can check it out. It's at stevencabral.com/detox. It was the first formula protocol that we ever came out with many, many years ago. And it's used by hundreds of thousands of people. And I would say 10,000 plus practitioners in their practice as well around the world. So it works. That's the bottom line. And when we just customize it for each person if they need to, but most people, they really never do. So then I would say one thing you might want to think about day 2 to still keep the autophagy going to a greater degree and just keep things liquid is instead, maybe you just do smoothies on day 2 rather than whole meals, right? So you take your 4 shakes and maybe you just add 1 cup of berries to each shake. Okay, no big deal. Like that's another level up. So happy to help in any way. We've helped lots and lots of people with this. If you want back and forth, just ask at cabralsupportgroup.com. Not hundreds of thousands of people there. 100,000 people have used the product. But what I would say is there are about 34,000 other people there we've provided support to over the years. And we would love to provide that support to you same day as well. All right. All right, another question from Kay. Kay says, hi, Dr. Cabral. Thanks for your awesome podcast and the opportunity to ask questions. I'm a 59-year-old female and in menopause. I never had cellulite on my arms and back of my upper thighs and glutes until I began taking hormone replacement therapy. Currently, I'm on 1 milligram oral bioidentical estradiol, and 100 milligrams of oral progesterone at bedtime. I also recently began taking 5 milligrams of DHEA by Equilife twice a day, and I'm at a good weight. I'm 5'2", 110 pounds. I do strength training 3 times per week, and I walk an average of 10,000 steps per day. I also recently incorporated your dry brushing techniques and plan to switch to topical HRT sometime this year with the help of a medical provider. I'm wondering what else I can do to eliminate cellulite. Okay, so I understand everything. I just want to understand the hormone replacement therapy you're on right now. So I've never had cellulite on my arms and the back of my upper thighs. Okay, so like probably the tricep area, and then upper thighs and glutes until I began taking hormone replacement therapy. All right, so now let's look at your dosage then. So the 5 milligrams of DHEA twice a day is a small dosage. So that's certainly not going to affect it, and it will help natural testosterone, et cetera. It will help natural estrogen. All right. So when I'm looking at your dosage, I would, again, I don't want to guess. That's why I lab test, right? So you can do at-home lab testing. Someone referred to it earlier. I think it was Tommy, right? That talked about the big 5. That's what we recommend. So, okay, that's what we'd recommend for you. But if you can only do 1 lab, I'd run the stress mood and metabolism test. Even on the hormone replacement therapy, that's fine. I'd be willing to bet that your estrogen levels are much higher than your progesterone. So oftentimes when women are taking estrogen and progesterone hormone replacement therapy, they might be taking like 0.25 or 0.375 of estradiol, and 100 milligrams of oral progesterone a bed. Like that's kind of like a lower starting dose. And then maybe they go up to 0.5 milligram, but you're already at 1 milligram of bioidentical estradiol and 100 milligrams of progesterone. And when you're telling me that cellulite started to come on when you started taking hormone replacement therapy, it could be because of the elevated estrogen. It's possible. So I would look into that for sure. I would look into the water retention if you had any from that, although you're only 110 pounds, right? So when you look at that, you say, okay, this person's at a very healthy weight, so there's no issues there. I would just want to make sure you're not overdoing it, you're not losing muscle. So I'd look at those, and I would definitely run that stress mood and metabolism test. I'd look at your DHEA levels, I'd look at your testosterone levels, and I would make sure you still have a balanced estrogen to progesterone ratio. Because whether you're on hormone replacement therapy or not, you should have a balanced estrogen to progesterone ratio, and that lab test is one of the only lab tests that will tell you that. All right. So I think that's at stephencabral.com/hormones-test. But either way, you can find all the labs at stephencabral.com/shop. All right, let's take one more question today. It's from Shelly. Shelly says, hello, Dr. Cabral. I've recently gone on a health and wellness journey, going from 228 pounds down to now 167 pounds in just over a year. That's amazing, Shelly. Congratulations, or Shelly. Incredible, like absolutely incredible. So good for you. I hope you're proud of yourself. You should be. So then Sheila goes on to say, to aid in the process, of course, exercise was part of it. With the exercise came all of the injuries of old, but mainly my knee. I injured it back in my college years playing tennis, and surgery wasn't recommended as they wanted to see if it would heal on its own. Torn meniscus, mostly in the vascular area. Well, fast forward many years than I care to count, and that residual tear on the vascular portion can be problematic. I've been looking in peptides, specifically BP157 and TB500, to potentially help this knee without surgical intervention. What are your thoughts on peptide use, these two in particular, and do you think they might help my knee? Okay, so a couple things. Injuries almost always come back because the same potential biomechanical imbalances are most likely still there. Now, that doesn't mean that there wasn't an injury playing a sport. Like there absolutely can be. I'm just saying the majority of people that I've worked with, they have tight hamstrings, tight hip flexors, the muscles around the knee, like the vastus medialis, right, the VMO, are not as strong as they should be. And especially with women where there's a greater hip angle than men, there can often be more knee-based injuries. So what I would say is this: I would just want to make sure that you are working on Romanian deadlifts, strengthen your hamstrings, strengthen your glutes. You're doing a lot of bridging. You're doing one-legged based exercises, one-legged squat ups, like all of the things to strengthen all the muscles, not going heavyweight. Like you don't have to go crazy with that, but strengthening everything in that area. And I would get on a really good program with a good personal trainer, like a good one from National Academy of Sports Medicine, National Strength and Conditioning Association, or the American College of Sports Medicine. And I would work with them for 6 months. And because we've helped so many people not have to have surgery or do anything greater. Now, meniscus surgery, if it's just a meniscectomy where they take off a snip of what's causing you that pain, is really minor, just to say that. But I'm not saying that should be your first choice, but I'm saying that's minor. And then I can't give a blanket statement that I'm good with all peptides, because I'm far from good with all peptides. I would say most you want to proceed with extreme caution, because they mess with your hormones, many of them. And that's not me being like a hater on peptides at all, because I'm going to share with you now another side of it. So ones that I think are fairly proven safe, especially in the short term, could be a BP 157 and TB 500. Also referred to as the Wolverine stack. I tried BP 157, the oral form, which is probably not what you want to use, just to see, because there is some good research on it. And I am someone that had, I used over 3,000 capsules of antibiotics until I was 17 years old. So, it absolutely decimated my gut. Now, have I rebuilt it since then? Of course. So I don't mess with my gut too much since that time, 27 years old, since when I got healthy. But BP 157 oral is one that I tested. Again, for me, didn't do anything. Why didn't do anything? Probably because I didn't need anything done, right? It's like if you're good, we don't need a lot of these things. That's why they're there when we need them, not just to use them per se. But again, it is my job when something's safe to say, let me try it myself so I can share it with our community. Now, BP 157, I would even give more of a green light than even TB 500, but I'm okay with that stack, especially for using it for maybe 8 to 12 weeks. In your case, again, I can't give you medical advice, but the injectable is probably going to give you a better result in the area of the injury than taking the oral-based form of BP 157. TB 500 really probably needs to be injectable only. All right, so hopefully that was helpful. And of course, I hope you're all doing well. Hopefully this weekend's house calls were helpful. And I'll be back tomorrow with a brand new Cabral concept. It's our Mindset and Motivation Monday. Don't miss it. Take care. Thanks so much for tuning into today's show. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I want to make sure that you're getting our daily content, not missing out on anything functional medicine, wellness, weight gain, weight loss, anti-aging, living longer, stronger, and all of the most cutting-edge research. And if there's any topics you want to hear, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Take care.